But it's
Welcome back, We Rise Podcast. What's up, fellas?
Hey, how you doing, Todd? Feels like I haven't seen you in a week.
Yeah, we got JT over here, Brother Marv, and our special guest right here.
Today, listen,
Judge.
Listen, folks, we got a guy here, probably needs no introduction. Staple in the state of Rhode Island, a man that's probably known all over America. Sitting judge for over 35 years, and just an all-around awesome human being. You probably recognize him from his show, Court in Providence. Today, our special guest in the building live, Judge Frank Caprio. How are you, sir?
Thank you, Marvin.
I appreciate it. My pleasure.
It's great being here at Legendary Boxing. I'm here with Jarrod, Todd, right? The whole crew here. I'm just ready to jump right in that ring and throw a few hooks.
You might have to before the end of the night.
You ready, man?
No, that's that side of the table.
Save that for later.
I'm a negotiator.
We're gonna save that for later.
Listen, this is a real privilege today to have this man as a guest on We Rise podcast. This is something Jarrod and I had talked about early on. You know, I came on maybe four shows in, and Jarrod and Todd had already been doing the show. And I remember I came in, I did my show, the first show with them, and he asked me to come on full time after that. And right away I said, Jarrod, we can do big things.
As soon as Marvin came on, our viewers went all the way down in the slums. That's for another conversation. Finish, Marvin.
So I said to him, we need to get people like Frank Caprio, Eddie Cooley, to mention a few, on the show, because we have so much substance just in this little state. And if we tap into that, I think, it's going to be great for us, and it's just going to bring more attention. And also, I just want to talk to these wonderful people and get to know them a little better. And I know there's a lot of people out there who have questions that they'd like to ask. They don't get a chance to do that.
I'd be happy to do that.
So today we're going to get right into it. We're not going to waste time.
Well, before we do that, I just want to make a couple of observations.
Okay.
People in boxing are very special people. Now, how do I know that? Because my dad was a boxer. He came from Italy when he was a young man, and he was a fighter. And through the years, of course, that comradeship of fighters, in there, who would, bat each other around. Then it was over, they shook hands, and they were friends. When my father was sick at the end of his life, he was in a nursing home, And every day, 3 of his friends from boxing would go and visit with him 5 hours a day. Ralph Zanelli, Dominic DeSantis, and Shockey Bonanno. And they would sit with him every day for his remaining days.
Wow.
That's a very special bond that people form.
Correct.
And that's just a minor thing that happens, with people in sports who have a heart, who have understanding, who have empathy, and really have love of their opponent in a very special way.
Judge, that, what you just said, it carries so much weight. And in sports, he said that family, that unity, that brotherhood, it helps us when we're down. Like, if we're having a bad time, we have our brother pick us up. And that's kind of like how we've been doing it through church and through, just iron sharpens iron.
Yeah, exactly.
And when I always say, when you stay by the campfire, that's where the magic happens. But if you wander off into the wilderness and things happen, that's where, you got to stay by the fire. And being involved in sports for all youth, there's a lot of special things and lessons that can be learned. And especially coming from broken homes or whatever it is, that those values that you learn in sports will transcend into your adulthood. And, it worked for me. And that's kind of why I stuck with sports. And even though I was almost always on the ledge, I always had sports to fall back on. And it was so important.
The lessons you learn in sports really transcend into real life. Most naturally in a contact sport like boxing, it's perseverance, and it's preparation. It's preparation. The greatest fighters in the world are those that were prepared the most, who put time in the gym. And in my lifetime, I think that the fighter who was the best conditioned fighter that I know of was Rocky Marciano.
Yep.
Rocky Marciano was in that gym every day. He never stepped in the ring unless he was top physical shape. And as a matter of fact, many of his fights he won because he was in such great shape.
Yeah.
Because he
could never have had survived the battering that he took from Sonny Liston. I beg your pardon, from Jersey Joe Walcott for 13 rounds.
No, 180 pounds is small for a heavyweight.
It was 184 pounds.
It's a small heavyweight. It's a small heavyweight. So
and he was fighting heavyweights 210 pounds.
Yeah.
Jersey Joe Walcott had him down in the first round and really beat him up for like 12 rounds. And Marciano was in such great shape that still in the 13th round, with one punch, one right cross, he knocked him out. The 13th round.
Perseverance.
And all of that, is what sports is all about. If you prepare, if you're diligent, it's like paying your dues in life. If you're a great parent, your children do great, your family does great. And if you're not, then the thing falls apart. So and boxing is very special. We should talk about some of the famous fighters, Jarrod.
yeah, we have one of my favorites is Sugar Ray Robinson.
Sugar Ray Robinson. Probably when you start mentioning the greatest fighters of all time, Sugar Ray Robinson is in the conversation. He's definitely one of the top 5. Some people think he was number 1. Some people think he was number 2 or 3. But he's definitely in the conversation.
175 professional fights.
Yeah.
175 professional fights. People nowadays, today, you have 50 fights and they're only 12 rounds, 10 rounds. So you have 50 fights, 10-round fights. That's a milestone today. 50 fights is big. 175 professional fights.
He fought some great fights with Rocky Graziano, not Graziano, the Raging Bull. What's his name?
Jake LaMotta.
Jake LaMotta. He fought Jake LaMotta 4 times.
Wow.
And Jake LaMotta was never knocked off his feet. And he actually beat Robinson once, and Robinson beat him 4 times. And the famous story about that is that in one of the fights, now don't forget, LaMotta never hit the canvas in any of his fights. Never hit the canvas.
Yeah.
And Robinson was battering him, and LaMotta went to the ring rope, and he put his arm over the rope, and Robinson was beating him up. When the bell rang, he turned around, and his face was bloody. He was bleeding from the nose and from the mouth, and he says, "Hey, Sugar, you couldn't knock me down."
Yeah.
Just woof. That is that's tenacity, but that's a special person. That stuff is built down here, and you
You can't learn that.
We had some great fighters from Rhode Island. We had Ralph Zanelli. We had Chubby Gomes, who was a world champion. We had Georgie Arugio, who was a world champion. And
Dino Dennis.
I mean, I remember as a youngster, my father would take me to watch fights at the Rhode Island Auditorium.
Yeah,
that's where Marciano had most of his fights.
Speaking, Rocky Marciano fought in this building right here across the street.
He did.
Yes, that's a building. That building has a lot of history. Rocky Marciano fought across the street in that building.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who did he fight? Do you know?
I don't know, but the we'll have to look that up.
What's all right?
Somebody fact check. Look this up.
We have to put a plaque on that building.
I believe it's that's the room is around Centerdale. I believe so. Somebody send in a message and let us know if that's true or false.
I've read a great deal about Rocky Marciano, and I know he's fought a lot of fights in Providence. I don't ever remember seeing anything that he fought any other place in Providence except at the Rhode Island Auditorium.
Well, now we have to find out. I want to know now.
I think we should find out.
So, Mom, you had something to ask.
Well, I got a lot.
All right, go ahead. Open up, Mom. Open up.
Let's go.
So, for those who don't know you, I know you're a very famous guy, obviously. Your show is awesome. You got 1.7 million subscribers, subscribers, and some of the shows have up to 6 million views.
We have 8 billion views.
Wow, total
8 billion, and we have over 10 million followers on Facebook.
So, question one is, whose idea was it to do the show?
It was my wife's.
Really?
Actually, my younger brother Joe,
Right.
who many of you know,
Joe's
Joe.
a good friend. Yes.
And Joe was a traffic engineer in Providence, and he wanted to do videography. And so we helped him out to get a whole bunch of cameras and editing equipment. And he was doing things.
Boxing?
He never charged anyone. He would do boxing.
Yeah, he did a lot
would
of
do
my
a variety
fights.
of things, and we put him on TV. And finally, he was running out of time because he had 2 hours a day that he had to put on television.
Okay.
And he was running out of events. So he said, my brother, so we came to the house and he said, Frank, he said, I need more events. And my wife said, why don't you film Frank's Court?
Wow.
And I said, absolutely not. What do you think won that argument?
Of course. The toughest person in the house, the wife, always.
Talking to judge the judge.
Great.
So that's how it all started.
Okay, so did you have any clue in the beginning that it was going to turn into what it is now? Because it's a very popular.
Just to be honest about it, we never dreamed it at the beginning, but as we went along, because don't forget, we've been on for 25 years, but as we went along, we said, maybe someday, we'll be recognized by somebody in Hollywood or New York, so. But what happened was the magic of social media.
Yeah.
And so a lot of our stuff began to appear on social media, and we caught the attention of national syndicators because we had this is going back, at that point, we had 1.8 billion views.
Wow.
Right? And that's what caught their attention.
Billion
We have over
views.
10 million now, but we have 1.8 billion views, and that's what caught their attention. And the rest is, then we were on national television, syndicated in every state in the union. And
Has anyone tried to get you to do like a show for them or?
NBC.
Yes, the network tried to pick you
well,
up.
I can't divulge any. I really can't. We've had conversations with a variety of entities that have called, and but be honest. I don't keep saying be honest. Every time somebody says I'll be honest with you, I think they're lying. But just let me say,
Very truly, I tell you.
we're rather selective. And interestingly enough, we have a following overseas that is unbelievable.
Wow.
That's what I
We
wanted to touch
have
on.
we are very it's very popular in Brazil, India, China, Pakistan, Italy.
Now,
Naturally.
how's life?
Brazil is better than Italy.
Yeah.
How's life changed for you because of the show? Because most judges don't get in it to be celebrities. it's not usually a position that's looked at as a lovable position, but here you are.
I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to tell you a story. I have a picture in my office. I had it blown up. Right. It's about 2.5 feet high and a 1.5 foot wide. And it's a picture of my older brother and myself. I was 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And my brother and I we used to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and work with my father on a milk truck. And they took this picture of my brother and I, with my brother's holding 2 milk bottles in his hand, which is living proof that I actually went to work when I was 10 years old. And you're gonna see the welfare we have. I mean, I had on a dirty T-shirt, a pair of pants that was ripped, and that's in the picture. Marvin, I look at that picture every day. I never forgot that. Never forget where I came from.
Right.
I don't think of myself as a celebrity. I don't think of myself as anybody special, right? Hopefully I haven't changed. And if I do change, I hope people would say to me, get back down to earth. Who do you think you are?
Right.
But I've always tried to, my mantra is, I try to treat people with respect, with dignity, with understanding, try to look at them through the eyes of God, look at them through the eyes of the poor. We're all going to be judged.
Amen.
It's just a basic. This is what I preach on the bench.
Mm-hmm.
I get people who can't afford a ticket. They're suffering hardship. I know what that's all about. I know that we endure hardship, financially when I was a kid. My whole neighborhood did, but we were a close-knit neighborhood. And the one thing we did was we remembered our parents, we remembered our grandparents, remember those who were sick, those who were elderly, those who were in need. Those are the qualities in life that are important. It's not trying to be a big shot. Say I'm somebody special. I was on national television, and one of the commentators says to me, "Well, how do you feel when you're up on the bench before you make a decision?" I said, "Let me tell you something." I said, "I don't wear a badge under my robe. I wear a heart under my robe."
Boom.
That's awesome.
Boom.
Yeah.
Did you hear that? Say that again.
That's true. That's true.
Judge Caprio will be fixing his eyebrows by the end of this interview. He wears a heart under his robe. Love wins.
Not a badge.
Love wins, not a badge. This is why, this is so impactful. You're an impactful human across the globe. I'm beyond blessed to have you here with us tonight. I love the fact that you lead with your heart, and it shows, and that compassion that you give to people, it's non-existent. Especially coming from a person in your stature and where you stand. Judges don't care about nobody like that.
Oh, they care. Don't.
Well, they don't.
Don't
They
no
can't show
the
it.
same brush. It's like everything else in life, So I'm going to defend the judiciary.
All right. Wait, but
I will say this.
have you caught backlash from the same people you defend?
I will say this. I think that how I treat people in our court, and we televise it, has made a favorable impact on the judiciary in the United States.
Absolutely.
And we get letters every day.
Absolutely.
Every day.
That's great. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
With
Judge
the
Frank
legendary
Caprio.
Frank Caprio here live at Legendary Boxing.
Good stuff.
go.
Good stuff.
We Rise Podcast.
Good stuff, Judge.
Pharmaceutical company Prevacus says their new concussion medication Prevacol helps repair nerves and promote cell growth.
We can get the drug in the brain in less than 5 minutes. And our plan is when we get that diagnosis on the field of play, give the drug nasally, get it in the brain quickly. When it gets in the brain, it actually gets into the nucleus of your brain cells, and it reduces swelling, inflammation, and oxidative stress at the same time.
When Jake and I first talked about this many years ago, one of my first questions was, will this help me? And he goes, no, this is for treatment immediately when a concussion or you think a concussion has occurred.
Yeah.
The acute problems that exist later on in life, if we can take care of these at an early age and start getting some of these things to our children and grandchildren, and I think we can make this game, our game, football, a safer place.
And so the whole goal is we're trying to make the game safer. And so Odyssey and this drug, we believe, can be a game changer in so many different ways. Yes, on the football field, in the game of football, because that's where my passion lies, but also in the game of life.
We'll come on. All right, end of the show. We'll do it.
Welcome
Welcome
back.
back.
Yours truly, Judge Caprio.
What do you got for him, JT? I know you're chomping at the bit over there.
Well, you were talking about, I wanted to bounce back with what would you, where is it? If you were talking to a 12-year-old Judge Caprio, what would you tell him?
I would tell him, the first thing I would tell him is to honor your parents. Second thing I would tell him is don't ever give up in life, particularly if you're somebody who comes from the inner city, who doesn't have a privileged life. And I would tell them, the 12-year-old, I particularly would tell them that the key to success in life, there are two keys to success. Number one is education, and the second is perseverance. And by all means, they have to stay in school. They have to stay in school. And depending on what the youngster would tell me, what his circumstances were. If he came from a privileged family, I would tell him to make his parents proud, to make sure that he studies hard and works to the maximum of his ability. And if from somebody from the inner city, I would tell them that their life can change substantially. Their life can change substantially if they would only stay on the right path, obey the law, obey their parents, work hard, and study hard. And show respect for your family and your elders. The basic unit of society is the family unit. That's the basic unit of society. I would try to have them understand this.
And in today's generation, too, it's difficult because you got a lot of broken home situations.
Unfortunately.
Right. You have a lot of these young guys who never, like we came up, like you just said, respecting our elders. We never spoke back to people who are older. You always showed respect. And neighborhoods were neighborhoods where people cared about each other. And,
right.
you didn't have to be someone's child for them to say, hey, don't do that.
Yes.
But now because of, I don't know if it's Hollywood, I don't know if it's music, I don't know what it is, or just the broken home element. A lot of these children are just completely lost, and they're just looking for attention. They're looking for to be accepted, and a lot of it gets into gangs and different things like that. How do we begin to correct those type of issues?
Well, first of all, education begins at home. And if you have a broken home and you have a broken family, it's very difficult for these kids. And as you just mentioned, Marvin, that's why many kids turn to gangs, because they welcome them in. I don't have any experience with gangs, but from what I'm reading and from what I read in the newspapers particularly, is that they entice these youngsters by saying, you're part of us, this is your family. So at the end of the day, education is the key. Education is the key. And I think we all have an obligation to help other people. Sometimes you can change somebody's life, not by giving them a fortune, but by just putting your hand on their shoulder and telling them that you believe in them.
Amen.
And that you have confidence in them and giving them hope. That's all some people need. It can change a kid's life if he feels that somebody has caring for him, has love and understanding.
So true, Judge.
So, we always talk about legacy, right? And we always talk about what the impact of our lives have on other people. What would you say you want your legacy to be, and what do you think it is at this point?
I just want my legacy to be that I was a decent and honorable man. If I'm remembered as being a decent and honorable man, I'd be very happy. I try my best. I'm not trying to be a showboat. I'm not a showboat. I'm not out, talking about any exploits. I just try to treat people with the respect and dignity that they deserve. They deserve it. They all deserve it. It's interesting. It's a setback for me when people from all over the world say, we can't believe how understanding and compassionate you are, like it's an alien foreign thing.
Right.
I mean, I was brought up this way.
Yeah, and that he's your DNA, you're built this way. People that's coming from, again, like Marvin said today, social media. Nobody comes from that neighborhood that where we, it's different today. Education is overlooked because all you have to do is become a social media influencer, and you get all kinds of money, and there's so many distractions today.
Listen, part of the answer to that question is it's friendships and it's loyalties. For example,
For example,
right?
I get
Jarrod called me.
That's right.
Jarrod called me and said, will you come on a podcast? I'm not getting paid for this, but he's a friend. I remember when he was fighting. I was involved in the fight business. I always thought he was a great kid. I'm not so sure right now. No.
You've made me better, Judge. You've made me better.
No, but that's what life is all about. You help your friends. You help people that are doing something right. And it's not I have a fee and I won't appear. That doesn't happen.
Yeah, I have to say the story. I called him and I felt like I ran 5 miles. I'm sweating. I got him on the phone. I'm like, hi, Joe, how are you? And I start going on and on about the podcast and my guests. I've had Mickey Ward, Dad. He goes, Jarrod, I don't care about who you've had on the show. Yeah. I'm coming for you.
Yeah.
And it kind of, that meant a lot to me because, again, like you say, how it's important to be selfless. It's important to give and help people. And that's what I'm all about over here. And I see it every day with these kids that come through my door. These kids come through my door and they all have a story and they might be smiling. But when I get to inside and we start talking and they're hurt, broken. I get the broken ones. And I love it. And I feel like you came to the right place. You walked in the right building because this is where you belong.
One of the keys of life is that it's not enough to be successful. So many people have climbed the ladder of success. That's not enough. You have to lead the ladder down so that other people can climb the ladder of success. That's the key.
I like that.
I love that. A lot of people take the ladder with them.
Yeah.
They pull it up.
They pull it up. When you're halfway up, they shake it.
Yeah.
They don't want you coming with them. They want it all for themselves.
Or
and
they
it's,
walk away.
Yeah.
Well,
let's talk a little about your involvement in the boxing industry for a while. Tell us how you came into boxing and what was your
I met Jimmy
role?
Burstfield. My brother Joe was filming several fights and putting them on social media on the statewide interconnect.
He did my fights.
Yeah, he did
He's
your
a big
fights.
fan
right?
of mine. He's always great.
And
to me.
we never charged anyone. We just
Yeah.
put those fights on TV. I would commentate. I'd be the announcer saying, it's a left, it's a right, and Tillinghast is the victor again.
Tillinghast is down.
Victor again.
Tillinghast is down.
Did you ever work
Tillinghast is out again.
Hold on. Did you ever announce
Never smelling salt. Tillinghast is down again.
Wait, did you ever announce Marvelous Marvin Bonds'
There
fight?
we go.
Nah, you don't remember that, right? He didn't even recognize Marvin until
What happened to
Marvin
the
laid
family
down.
thing? What happened to the family thing? We were just
He
talking
didn't
about?
recognize you until you laid down. Then he was like, "Oh, that's Marvin Bonds."
So anyway, so we were filming the fights and we placed them on TV. And it really was a service to everyone, and there was no charge. We didn't charge anyone. Well, we paid for the filming and the cameras and all that stuff. And I met Jimmy Burstfield through that. And for a short period of time, Jimmy and I promoted fights together. And Jimmy was great to work with.
Oh, you was a promoter. Wow. I didn't know that.
I beg your pardon?
I used a promoter. I didn't know that.
I was
So what was that
Come
experience?
I was a promoter for 3 years. We promoted fights in this area mostly. Actually, even in Massachusetts, we go to New Bedford, Fall River, and down the Cape, down to the.
Wow.
We had a fight down at the Cape, and
Remember that?
was it Melody Tent?
Was it Kippy Diggs who fought that guy?
Yeah, Kippy Diggs was fighting
Kippy
there.
Diggs is fighting
And
that guy.
they put the gym, the ring up, and it's a big entertainment area. And the fellow, after they put the ring up, says, "We don't know what to do. People are coming in. There's a skunk under the ring." And we said prayers and kept our fingers crossed for the remainder of the night. Unfortunately, the skunk. And someone says, "Don't bother the skunk. Don't try to get it out because it'll spray. But if you just leave it alone, And fortunately, we got through the night and things worked out pretty well. Yeah.
You're lucky. That
But
would
we actually the first fight at the convention center in Providence.
I remember that.
We promoted that one as well.
No, yeah. No, what year was that? Because I remember it was like around 90, between 90,
91, 92.
1.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I got to put you on the spot for a second here.
All right. Here we go.
We had a. Do you still follow the sport? First of all.
Oh, I do. Yes.
Okay, good. So we had a discussion a couple of weeks ago, and there's a fight that they're trying to make with Boo Boo Andrew and Canelo Alvarez.
Oh.
And we're gonna have Boo Boo on probably next week to discuss that whole situation. But if you were gonna pick a fighter in that fight, who would it be?
I'm not picking up.
Wow. Really trying to put him on the spot.
Marvin. You gotta stay away from that.
Go to commercial break.
We'll be right back with the Marvin Bond Show.
We rise.
Pharmaceutical company Prevacus says their new concussion medication Prevacol helps repair nerves and promote cell growth.
We can get the drug in the brain in less than 5 minutes. And our plan is when we get that diagnosis on the field of play, give the drug nasally, get it in the brain quickly. When it gets in the brain, it actually gets into the nucleus of your brain cells, and it reduces swelling, inflammation, and oxidative stress at the same time.
When Jake and I first talked about this many years ago, one of my first questions was, will this help me? And he goes, no, this is for treatment immediately when a concussion or you think a concussion has occurred.
Yeah.
The acute problems that exist later on in life, if we can take care of these at an early age and start getting some of these things to our children and grandchildren, and I think we can make our game, football, a safer place.
And so the whole goal is we're trying to make the game safer. And so Odyssey and this drug, we believe, can be a game changer in so many different ways. Yes, on the football field, in the game of football, because that's where my passion lies, but also in the game of life.
Welcome back. We rise. So second week in a row, we got Jarrod Tillinghast over here. While we're on break, talking about who? Shannon Briggs.
How did the whole conversation start, Marv?
You brought it up. I looked at the video. You just started going in on the guy.
Jarrod wants to call someone out.
I just told Judge Caprio.
He wants the judge to be a witness.
I told Judge Caprio, Shannon Briggs, I'll knock you out. Bottom line, period. All the talking stops. I'll take you out, and I want the fight. So whatever you want to do, you have it live. So I hope that this is going to get to him now. Show up at my gym. Show up at my gym with that stuff. What's up, champ? What's he say?
Because you got an MMA champion over here.
Don't worry. Never mind the dog, but we're the owner. Right, Judge? No. See, as soon as Judge got here, I got wings.
I'm not making any predictions on that fight.
That's
But
okay.
you would watch
Although-
it. You would watch it.
Well, I'm not going to make a prediction because a lot of my friends will bet based on my prediction, and I don't want anyone losing any money.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Hey,
I have to interrupt just for a second, but I was talking about some great fighters from Rhode Island,
Hmm.
and I don't know how I omitted Vinny Pazienza, but obviously he's
Yeah.
somebody we can be proud of in the boxing ring.
oh yeah.
Also, I
100%.
gotta say,
Rhode Island as well.
one of the guys that I met and I came up in his gym, one of the best people I ever met in the sport was Gary Tiger Boletto.
Oh yeah.
So that's
Oh,
my
yeah.
guy. What's up, Tiger?
Yeah,
We're
Tiger
gonna have him
Boletto.
on in a couple of weeks too.
Yeah.
Second to none, Gary. Another
He
amazing
had a
hop.
he had the heart of a lion.
Yeah,
He was called Tiger Boletto, but he had the heart of a lion.
inside and outside of the ring.
You know,
Great
That
guy.
is,
great
you
kid.
know,
Just great.
Gary's
I hope that they find a cure for his
Mm.
spinal issues. And I was told by some very prominent people in the medical field that looks like they may be able to find something during his lifetime. You know,
Really?
awesome.
That's
I hope
that's
so.
great.
He's such a good
Yeah.
kid.
Yeah.
If there's any human that can do it,
Yeah.
because that
He's
stuff that's like
He's
that.
fighting on it.
You know, that's that different DNA.
Perfect
Gary
man.
Boletto is the guy. If there's anybody that's going to get up and do it, it's Gary. I'll tell you. He's during the whole accident, even laying in his bed fighting for his life weeks after, and he never complained. He never made an excuse. That's an amazing accomplishment, just not to complain. He smiles every day.
Every day.
He puts love. He went from a guy that could walk around a block on his hands. This is the true story. Me and Gary, cousins, and we grew up together, and we were inseparable growing up. And in Silver Lake, there's this particular block that he lived on, and it was like 3 blocks in one. It was so big. Gary would walk around on his hands while we were walking like nothing. You know, amazing person. Never complained once. He's he's an inspiration, another inspiration.
Well, Gary, we'll continue to pray and hope for you.
Absolutely. So I got to talk about your show one more time, right? So it's funny because I'm one of those guys who will say when people are watching TV, like somebody starts crying during a movie, I'm like, it's a movie. What are you crying for? It's not even real, you know?
He's about to tell you how many times you made him cry.
I started watching the show.
Yeah.
And I cannot watch the show in front of you. I'm snot running out of my nose. I'm leaking like a faucet. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So, I got to say to you that you touch hearts. You know what I mean?
Most
And
definitely.
people, I mean, you don't see this. You don't see people singing in courtrooms and, calling people up to the bench and hugging them and,
He gets their kids, puts them on his lap.
and I was watching some episodes today before I came in, and you were reading a letter that you got from a judge from Texas. And he had donated some money to help. And I don't remember his name, forgive me, but he had donated some money to help anyone who came before you that didn't have the resources to pay. And that's the impact that you've had across America, and you're getting other people to show that empathy, that compassion that otherwise would probably be more like I call it like an assembly line, and they're starting to look into people's lives and situations more to really help people and not just conduct business as usual.
I want to talk about that just for a second. So we have now people all over the world who voluntarily, and I don't solicit money in any way, shape, or form, but people who have an opportunity to view our court proceeding, view what's going on, and they voluntarily send in money from all over the world for me to use to help people who can't afford to pay their tickets. And we talked about family earlier, and so with these funds that we receive, I've placed them in what I call the Philomena Fund. It's actually a 501c corp. It's a charitable corporation to use to help those people who come before the club. And I name it Philomena after my mother.
Wow.
So it's called the Philomena Fund.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So we have people. I got a letter from China with $3 American in it. Somebody saying, I want to help somebody who comes before your club.
Wow.
And it's heartbreaking for me. I mean, I well up when I read some of these letters.
I think the reason why people connect with you so much, because let's face it, there's a lot of times people do that but they're not sincere. They do it because of the status quo of, oh, I helped 3 people today, but you do it with your heart and soul that you don't keep score. It's obvious, Judge. When people look at you and when you deal with people, you have an amazing soul, and
It
it
makes no difference whether the cameras are running or not.
I know
They get treated the same.
that's
Doesn't make any difference.
I know.
But Judge,
I know.
don't you think about how beautiful it is? Like when, like you said, that people sent the $3 from China. I feel like that's God saying you're doing a good job, son. Keep going.
Thank you. I hope so.
I just feel like that.
I hope God's sending a message.
That's a big judge right there.
Reassurance. I love it.
So you
I
still,
think there's a lot of truth to that, incidentally, because I believe, and I really do believe. I think we're doing, at least I'm trying to do some of God's work.
You
You're
are.
not trying. You're doing, Judge.
I said that to you earlier, Marvin, didn't I? I said the same thing you said. I said, now that I know, now I know what he expects of us. It keeps me, because that 1% always wants to go the other way, but that knowing what he expects, this is what we're supposed to do. Help, give, help, impact lives, change lives through our stories, through our trials and our errors and our mistakes. If we can get through that, weathering the storm, I call it. Everybody has a different, but I call it if you go weather the storm in life, because there's going to be a storm and it's going to come hard.
It's coming in.
Especially if you're coming from broken and you're not at home and you got dysfunctional parents, and it's even harder. But if you could weather the storm, and if you could just not give in to accepting your life to be this way because history repeats itself, you could break the chain and the cycle, but you got to hold on. You got to fight, and you got to persevere. And that's the story of, that's how you relate to me so much, because that has been my way. I said, if I could just weather the storm a little longer, it will pass. The sun will shine,
My question is, what inspired you to become a judge in the first place?
I was inspired to go into the legal profession when I was 10 years old. And I talked earlier about putting your hand on someone's shoulder. My father came from Italy. He was a fruit peddler. He peddled fruit from a push cart. He came from Italy. We had very little when I was a kid. We lived in what they called a cold water flat, which means we didn't have hot running water. And I remember it so clearly. It was a cold winter day. We had this pot-belly stove in the kitchen, and the oven door was open, and we were all huddled in front of the stove to keep warm. And my dad was talking to my brother and I, my brother Anthony, and giving us lessons in life. And he put his hand on my shoulder, and he says, you're a good talker. He said, someday you're going to be a lawyer.
Oh, wow.
And then he said to me, he said, I want you to look around how we're living now. He says, if I needed a lawyer, I couldn't afford one. He said, so remember, you can't charge poor people. He says, don't worry about it. You make it up with the rich people, but you can't charge poor people. I can say honestly, without fear of contradiction, that in my entire legal career, we never charged anyone that couldn't afford it, particularly for my neighborhood. All my old families that lived there, when they came, we never charged. We never charged anyone that couldn't make it. But my dad ignited that flame, but he did a whole bunch of other things.
Oh, obviously.
He did a whole bunch of other things. He let us wake us up in the morning, go to work at 4:00 on the milk truck, and say to us, if you don't want to do this the rest of your life, you better find a way to go to college because I can't afford it. And so he was a pivotal character. He was a pivotal person in my life, with the love and understanding and support from my father. I always knew I had this strong sense of family. And that's how it all started. I never wanted to be anything else in my life.
Wow.
Except a lawyer, because my dad put his hand on my shoulder and told me that's what I had to do.
Amazing. Judge, off of that, what would you say to people who don't have the dad like you?
Search out someone who you have confidence and faith in. Sometimes it's a school teacher. Sometimes it's a clergy person, regardless, what religion you subscribe to, But listen to your elders. Listen to your elders and stay away from the phonies. Stay away from people who are offering you the sky. Stay away from drugs. Stay away from alcohol. Just remember that. Even if your circumstances, through no fault of your own, are tough, you can rise above it. You got to reach deep down within yourself, to gather that strength and follow a righteous path. And don't quit. Don't quit. Perseverance is the greatest quality, because you can make it.
Now, how many children do you have?
I have 5.
I have 5. So here's a quick side note. For years, I wasn't sure. I knew somebody that had the same name, Caprio.
Uh-huh.
I didn't know if they were related to you or not. And I always said, what if that's Judge Caprio's daughter? So one day I'm watching your show, and you said, hey, my daughter's here. Marissa, come on up here. And I'm like, wow, because Marissa was in the same class as me at LaSalle. We graduated the same year. So all that time, I didn't know that was your daughter until like last year when I saw the show and you called her up on the bench.
On the bench, yeah.
Yeah, so hello, Marissa. I haven't seen her in a long time. It was the first time I'd seen her since high school.
We had a big day yesterday. Marissa's son made his confirmation. So the entire family, we got together and went over to St. Anthony's Church in North Providence, and
Father Ed.
And then all went out to dinner afterwards, and the family, we were all together.
That's awesome. Father Ed, right?
Father Ed, yeah,
Yes.
wonderful man.
Wonderful.
man.
Love Father Ed.
But you got
So
help.
now I want to ask another thing, Judge. What would you say? Today's day, today's society. I had personal friends that during the pandemic, they've called me and they lost confidence in themselves. They couldn't face people. They were isolated, and even talking to me, there was fear about thinking about going back out there. People just lost confidence in themselves, or government. There's been a lot of things. What would you say to the people who lost confidence in themselves?
Well, there's no magic wand. It would depend on the root cause of why they lost confidence in themselves. Was it because of a death in their family? Was it because of a setback they had financially? So it would really depend on what those circumstances were, But I would say seek help. Seek help from responsible, professional people who can advise you. Or maybe a family member that you have trust and confidence in, an aunt or an uncle or a cousin, but somebody that you can trust that would give you advice that is in your best interest and not in their best interest. Because all too often we get advice from people who give us advice that's in their best interest, not in ours. So that's what I would do. Okay, I want to say one thing before we leave. Okay, how much time do we have?
We got time.
How much time?
We'll take yours then. Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask, because excuse me for not knowing, but have you written a book yet?
Actually,
Because we have a lot of stuff to say.
we're contemplating that.
Okay.
It's funny you mentioned that. We're contemplating that. We have a couple of chapters written, and hopefully it'll come out, and we'll let all you guys know. Maybe we'll have a book signing.
Yeah, that'd be great. Book signing at Legendary Boxing.
What's the
Exclusive book signing, Legendary Boxing.
Here's what I want to say. Make sure I get this in before we leave. And I want to speak to everyone that, we talk about helping others. And we talk about take an examination of yourself. What is our role in life? And I think what we should remember those who came before us. Remember those who sacrificed and gave so much and took so little so that we could succeed. Remember your grandparents, your aunts, your uncles, your parents. Remember those who are afflicted, those who are down and out. Because someday, those are our challenges in life. And someday we're going to be judged on whether or not we met that challenge. And we're going to be judged not by how much we earn, but how much we care.
That's right.
We're going to be judged not by the dreams that we made come true for ourselves, but by the dreams that we made come true for others. And we are going to, what I want you to remember is that we will be judged by the hope that we inspire in the hopeless, and the difference that we make in the lives that we touch.
That is value that money can't buy. Everybody should watch this over and over and over again when you're down on your luck or you're feeling a little blue, because this is wisdom that you're not going to get. Please trust me. This is wisdom that you need to listen to. Again, are we taking a break? Where are we? A quick break? Okay, we'll take a quick break. Come right back.
Oh, I thought we were over.
Are we over?
We're gonna wrap it up right after this.
We're going to wrap it up. Come back and wrap it up. All right, go ahead.
Wow, that's good stuff.
Pharmaceutical company Prevacus says their new concussion medication Prevacol helps repair nerves and promote cell growth.
We can get the drug in the brain in less than 5 minutes. And our plan is when we get that diagnosis on the field of play, give the drug nasally, get it in the brain quickly. When it gets in the brain, it actually gets into the nucleus of your brain cells, and it reduces swelling, inflammation, and oxidative stress at the same time.
When Jake and I first talked about this many years ago, one of my first questions was, will this help me? And he goes, no, this is for treatment immediately when a concussion or you think a concussion has occurred.
Yeah.
The acute problems that exist later on in life, if we can take care of these at an early age and start getting some of these things to our children and grandchildren, and I think we can make this game, our game, football, a safer place.
And so the whole goal is we're trying to make the game safer. And so Odyssey and this drug, we believe, can be a game changer in so many different ways. Yes, on the football field, in the game of football, because that's where my passion lies, but also in the game of life.
Welcome back. Just a truly awesome interview. One I was waiting a long time to get and to be a part of. Glad you came. I'm glad we had the opportunity to speak to you today. It's our pleasure, trust me. And we appreciate your generosity and your wisdom. And we're going to close the show out like we normally do. And I'm going to pass it over to the big guy himself, the Hulkster. What do you got for us today?
Judge, I just want to say thank you for coming on. And I have the perfect scripture for us today. And I pray that this hits everybody's heart. I get nervous when I read scripture because I'm speaking God's words.
Speak up over here.
All right, it says, be subject for the Lord's sake to every human institution, whether it be the emperor as supreme or the governors as sent by him to punish those who do evil, to praise those who do good. For this is the will of God, that by doing good you should put to silence the ignorance of foolish people. Live as people who are free, not using their freedom as a cover-up for evil, but by living as servants of God. Honor everyone, love the brotherhood, fear God, honor the judge.
Amen.
What's the verse?
What's the verse?
1 Peter 2, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17.
Ooh.
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen.
All right, we Judge, we got to close off.
This is epic right here. If this happens, forget about it.
Listen,
this show's going to go right to the top.
This is a moment in my life I will take with me forever. Take a picture. Judge, are we ready?
Let's go.
All right, bro? We fix that right, bro?
Here we go.
Yeah, you got
Pinky.
Oh! Oh! Bring it out!
Thank you,
Right,
Judge.
man. Awesome. Bob, you see? Judge Caprio. Judge, thank you so much. That was great.
Thank you, Jarrod.
Thank
That was
you,
great.
buddy. I appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Thank you. All right,
Oh,
well,
we're
that's it. We closed out.
We ride.
Come on, Rod, shut it down.
They wanna keep us low. They think that we don't know. So we gon' show them that this kingdom about to rise up. They wanna keep us low. They think that we don't know. So we gon' show them that this kingdom about to rise up. Rise, 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 rise. They think that we don't know, so we gon' show them